What is up, everybody? This is Marshall Lee of DonkeyJawProjects.com, and today we're gonna get wild. We're gonna get real wild. We're gonna get WildCat, and here we
Yeah,
have Mr. CB Smallwood, the creator of none other than WildCat, here to talk about the new campaign, and we'll just be chatting about comic stuff and everything. So
yeah.
how's it going, man? To let everybody know who you are. Where I mean, I think everybody knows you, but let them know
Well,
anyways.
uh, uh, for anybody that don't know me, my name is CB Smallwood. I'm the creator of WildCat and a bunch of other wacky doodle things. Um, WildCat, for those that don't know, he's imagine kind of like a mushed up Wolverine, Hellboy, um, kind of John Carpenter's Snake Plissken with a dash of Crow, with a dash of just everything that was ever cool in the 90s and just kind of mangled together into this thing that I've made. And yeah, that's Wildcat. I'm sorry, I'm a little off kiltered, it's for, I don't know why this stuff always happens to me, I was late. I was late on Jeff's show. I was an hour late.
Oh wow.
Yeah. I was. I had a mix up with the time zones. I was in another time zone. I was in the twilight zone. That's where I was at for an hour.
I've
Um,
been that myself. I missed two shows recently. That I totally just I forgot I scheduled at that time or a different time, and
yeah,
I'm like, holy crap! I never used to do that before, so I'm like trying to be back on my game with this stuff. But it's easy to make a mistake.
I know. I feel like
Especially
I'm
with
cursed though, because it happened again because
hmm
right before the show started,
mm,
uh, I was like, okay, yeah, I got off work. I got plenty of time. I'll go take me a shower, all this fine stuff. Just can't get my mind in the right place, get in my, get all the Zen going on.
mhm,
And then I look, and on my modem, it's flashing red. Just keeps
mm.
flashing red. No, 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 you can't do this, and it's like there's 30 minutes to go. And I'm fooling with it and fooling with it. I'm on the phone. Hey, this thing ain't working. Oh yeah, it should be working. No, eventually, and this is the truth. I'm not fudging this. About 3 minutes till, or it was 6:27. I got down on my knees and I prayed,
Mhm,
please, Lord,
mhm,
if you can make it kick in right about now, or at least a little bit after, or something like that. I really need to do this interview. If you just help me out, and sometimes when you pray, the answer is either no or be patient or yeah. It's usually one of the
mhm.
three. And right then and there, like a couple seconds later, YouTube boots up on my desktop computer. Like, yes, thank you,
Nice.
Lord. Yes, it's very nice. I really appreciate it.
Uh-huh.
Appreciate the help.
Thank you,
So
Lord.
anyway, Wildcat,
We have nothing.
Wildcat.
We have
Yeah,
no issues with the praising of the Lord here
yeah,
at this YouTube channel. So good stuff, man. I like it.
yeah. Well, yeah.
Um,
And I really am thankful. I appreciate that he helped me.
absolutely. Yeah, that's awesome.
Um,
Um, so yeah, man. And just so everybody knows, I already put the link in the description for the Indiegogo that Wildcat for Wildcat. So check that out. We got a lot of the people, a lot of our friends here who have actually contributed to the anthology in the
yeah,
house. So
awesome.
that's
Thank
awesome,
you.
and just friends of the channel and everything. Like, thank you guys for hanging out with us. Um, you know, I think Sideburns he has something in there too, huh?
He does. He actually he was an overachiever. He the what I gave everybody to do is, like, contribute at least 8 pages of story, because I wanted
Mhm.
everybody to be able to flex if they needed to flex, and I felt like 8 pages is enough for somebody to tell the story. But I told everybody that if you wanted to do more pages, please do so, and he did 13.
Oh wow,
Yeah, so he
nice.
told a really cool story. I like the characters that he came up with, and he did this whole witch angle and these kind of like I think like Pokemon cards come to life type of deal. Is
Mhm.
pretty neat.
Yeah, I'm
Very
looking
cool.
forward to seeing that. I've watched, man, Sideburns from, like, I guess it's been maybe 2 to 3, 4, no, it's been even more, probably 4, somewhere around 4 years that I've been aware of Mr. Sideburns, and I just love seeing, like, all my friends, like, as they progress, and Sideburns is definitely one of them who,
Yeah.
you can see, like, how much he's gotten better and better with every, like, consecutive, like, project he works on and stuff, so it's really awesome to see that. I'm looking forward to see what he's done, in the anthology as well, for sure.
Yeah,
Um
I agree with that. I've been following his YouTube channel, and he does a lot of play-by-play, video game stuff, and then he also does his comics,
Mhm.
and it's pretty cool. It's always cool to watch somebody as they improve and they just keep getting better and better. And I felt like he did that too when he was working on the anthology, doing his Wildcat story. And
Mhm.
I thought it was very creative. It's very cool.
Nice, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. So, how many creators are on this project, man? It's a lot, huh?
Well, I'm not the best with math, but there are 6 creative teams, and I actually pulled up the Indiegogo because it's where I got my list on there of everybody that's on it. We've
Okay, you
got
know what? Let me
Yeah.
go ahead and do that. I'm not like sometimes I'm not used to doing it as much because I don't do the live streams as much anymore, but
Oh, no, no, that's no big deal.
gonna do it.
Yeah.
Uh, let's see. Here we go. The Chrome tab. Here we go. Yeah, we can do it like that. And let's get to the list of creators, which I think is a little further down, or I don't
Go
know,
up. Uh,
up further. I was looking at it earlier, but oh, there it is. Okay, cool. Yeah, so here we go. We got looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. About 10 or so.
yeah, yeah,
Nice.
yeah. That should be everybody. If I forgot anybody, I'm sorry. I am 98% certain this is everyone. You
Hmm.
know, but you just never know.
There's the cover right there.
Yeah.
It's looking good, man. Who did this cover? You or somebody else?
Yeah, that's my pencil and inks, and it was colored by. Let me make sure I pronounce this right. Iwan Joko Triano.
Okay.
Yeah,
Nice.
he's a really good colorist. He makes me look good.
Yeah, it looks great. I
Yeah.
I love it. It's very striking image. I also like the variant cover one too. That's what I use for the thumbnail. That's really dope too. You did that one too, right?
Yeah.
So that's awesome.
Yeah, the image that's below the New Empire logo, it's got Wildcat and he's got chains through his mouth and stuff.
Hmm.
That's actually taken from one of the stories in the anthology that was written by B.W. Sims.
Nice.
And in that story, basically some intergalactic bounty hunters are dropping Wildcat off in Antarctica or the
Hmm.
Arctic, either or. And they're tying him up to a pole, and he's all chained up. He's been drugged, and he's slowly coming to.
Hmm.
And they fly off in their ship, but coming looming in the distance is 2 cybernetic polar bears,
Hmm.
and they're coming after Wildcat, or maybe he just happens to be in their path. Who knows? But there happens to be a Inuit family that's in their path, so Wildcat has to free himself quickly in order to try to save them from these hungry polar bears.
Nice.
Yeah.
That sounds awesome. That's like right
Yeah.
up my alley. You know, that's the thing too, is like as I was thinking about doing this episode and everything, I was just like um I was thinking I feel like you and I share some similar influences. We probably, I think we're around similar age. And you did mention, like all the awesome stuff from the 90s that you liked and stuff. So
Mhm.
I'm curious, man, like I don't know, I mean, I know we've talked about Wildcat before on this show with you,
Yeah.
but I don't know if I asked you this or not, but like where, like what, I'd love to hear a little bit of your first experiences with comics, and then like kind of what, like what it was like, kind of being younger in the '90s, and what that experience was for you, as far as like, being introduced to all these cool characters and whatnot.
Okay. All right. I'll hit you
Yes.
all with a big story. Nothing amazing, you know.
All right.
Um, First introduction to comics was probably when I was itty bitty and I wasn't self aware, anywhere from 2 to 5, 6, somewhere in there. And I know that my first couple of comics, and I can't say what the first one was. I've got an Incredible Hulk comic drawn by Sal Buscema and probably written by, oh, what is that guy's name? He's in a nursing home now. He's a terrific writer, and I wish I can remember his name off the top of my head. But it's an issue where the Smart Hulk is at a construction site and zigzags. This living energy shows up and
Mm.
fights the Hulk, and it's really cool. And the cover's missing because I ripped it off. And I must have really liked the double splash page of Hulk because I took an ink pen and I drew all over him. Um, some of the other earlier comics I got into, was like Ghostbusters, which that was really edgy comic. If anybody goes and looks that up online, um, they covered a lot of dark stuff in that. And it's really surprising for a kids comic. And then
Is that
Teenage.
the is that the Ghostbusters, like, from the movie? Because I know there was 2 different ones.
It was an ongoing series, and I think it was Now Publishing. I could be wrong.
Yeah.
Um, but it was really cool stories where they fought Satanists,
Oh,
they
wow.
fought werewolves, and all this other stuff. It was really far out. And there was one where this child was like he was like the second coming of the Antichrist, and when they analyzed him with some spectrogram thing, they could see the demon in him, but he was a good boy, but not. And
Mhm.
it's crazy. So Ghostbusters, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles from Archie. I guess Archie did a run on that. Um,
Mhm.
but when the X-Men cartoon came out, I mean, I got Superman and a couple other things before then. But when the X-Men cartoon came out, I became a Marvel zombie, and I got all the X books, and then eventually just got all the Marvel books. Just, well, not every single one of them, but I was probably getting like 10 different titles, just whatever looked cool and was reading good. But always X books first and foremost. And it's like, it hit strong in the 90s. And, for anybody that is younger, I'm sorry you guys missed out. It was a really cool time. A lot of
Yeah.
us that were alive during then, we didn't know how cool it was. Well, some people did. They had the big bell bottom pants and the chain that they wore by their side, and they was into all the latest bands, everything from Nirvana to Korn and all the stuff that came later. Uh, but yeah, it was the 90s was a really interesting time in music, in comics, uh,
Mhm.
in television, movies. It was just, it's like an explosion of creativity. And I mean, professional wrestling, if anybody's a fan of that, I felt like it reached its zenith in the 90s. But then, like, just everything after the 90s was over, everything came crashing down. You had the Image founders, they suffered from burnout. A lot of them quit drawing comics for a long time, and some of them still don't draw comics anymore.
Yeah,
Um,
most of them don't.
Yeah, and the grunge scene, it came to a crashing halt. New metal kind of fizzled out and never got a proper replacement.
Seemed like
Um,
everything started to get kinda
yeah,
watered down and commercialized,
that
you
was
know?
the other thing. It's like the same thing kind of happened in the I guess like the 70s. In the 60s you had some interesting music going on a little bit in the 70s, but all of a sudden you had the Carpenters.
Mm.
You know, That's the kind of direction that the music went into. And the
Mm.
same thing happened in music after the 90s. It became about boy bands and girly bands, I guess. I don't know what the, pop princesses,
Yeah.
the birth of Britney Spears and Christina Aguilera and all that good stuff.
Yeah, like, right, like, we had that, the whole grunge thing with
Yeah.
Nirvana and stuff, and then, it's like,
Oh, and I left out hip hop too. Hip
yeah,
hop and rap.
but,
Yeah.
like, the rock and roll and metal scene, like, just got really boring, like,
Yeah.
for a long time after that. I feel like it took a while before it kinda got some edge back, and it's still
Mhm.
kinda there, but, now there's so much indie stuff, you can find some really good stuff, but,
Yeah.
same thing with hip hop, like, it was like it kinda hit its golden age, like, in the early to mid '90s, and then, you know, stuff started to get commercialized, and it just was not the same anymore, even with the comics, and a lot of people have a lot of critique for 90s comics and stuff, and I get it, but I don't know, to me that stuff is exciting, like I'm to me, like right now I'm going back to that, like
Yeah.
that's kind of like when I see you do Wildcat, I'm like, that's what I wanna do, like, I'm literally going directly to my favorite comics of the '90s, and I'm just, like, studying them like crazy right now because 'cause I'm just like, "This is what got me excited about making comics," and the thing is, like, I know, like, there's a lot to be said, like, maybe criticizing, but when I was looking at those comics, they just were like they hit me like I don't know, there was energy, there was excitement.
Mm.
The stories weren't always so great. I heard McFarlane on a interview recently, and he said our stories and Image weren't, none of us were really doing the greatest stories,
Yeah.
like he even admitted it. I was like, damn, okay. But I enjoyed it thoroughly for what it was, and I watch cartoonish kayfabe a lot of times, and one thing that Ed Piskor says a lot of times is he's like, he'll be talking about like Liefeld or something, and he'd be like, basically what they're doing is they're taking like toys and they're butting them up against each other, playing with them like we played with toys back, action figures and stuff, and that's kind of what it is. But I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think it's fun,
Mm.
and I think you can bring good story out of that stuff too. I mean, I feel like it was influenced by things like Terminator 2. Now, Terminator 2, that's a really good story,
Yeah.
actually. If you go back and watch it, like, and think about like the actual story structure and all that, it's a really good story. There's a lot of stuff like that. Aliens, Predator, like all that stuff was in the zeitgeist at the time,
Yeah.
including the comics and the grunge music and all that stuff. So I don't know. I think there's an energy there, and I feel like that's what excited me about comics, and I can tell by what you do that was a lot of what excited you as well.
Yeah. I totally agree with you. It's when you go and read a lot of the 90s comics, even the ones that were lambasted, like the Clone Saga. I mean, I
Mhm.
remember at the time, I enjoyed this Clone Saga. I didn't know who the real Spider-Man was. And then you had Ben Riley and you had Kane show up. And it's just it was interesting. It's like who was the real Spider-Man, but apparently a lot of Spider fans didn't really care much for that. But they righted the ship on that. But anyway, that there's all these cool things that were going on in the 90s, and the biggest thing that I can think to describe it is a lot of those books were just fun.
Mm,
You
yeah.
pick them up, you read them, and they were fun, and it was like you went on a roller coaster ride. You know. Every single book, you just pick a new one up. And the cool thing is there were so many different indie, I don't know if indie's the right word, but small press publishers that were getting started. You know, there's like an explosion of it. After Malibu was already going on, but after Image took off, Malibu introduced the Ultraverse. You had Bravura with a bunch of old school guys on Bravura. I don't know how to pronounce it. You had some other old school guys like Mike Minola and John Burns, and maybe Walter Simonson. I guess that's how you pronounce his name.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's
they
still
were.
going.
Yeah, they were doing. I think Legend
Hmm.
under Dark Horse. You
Yeah,
had. Oh my gosh, Techno Comics. Uh,
yeah.
uh,
There was a
I
lot
mean,
of
there was a lot. Tops Comics.
them.
It's like, and then you'd go to your local grocery store or mom and pop store, gas station. They're on the spinner rack. I mean, that's where I first got introduced to Pitt. Issue 3,
Hmm.
where he fights Zoid. And I remember walking out of Walmart with it, and it was raining, and the drops of rain was getting on it, and I was trying to protect the poor thing. I tried my best, and I just remember being dismayed that I got in the car, and then now that it's drying, it looked like something from the Ark of the Covenant that had been left there in ancient times.
Yeah.
But got it home and flip through it, get over the fact that the cover's ruined, but the interiors were awesome. It's like, oh, this is
Mhm.
fantastic.
Yeah.
And but anyway, like when I work on Wildcat and I do Wildcat stuff or any other thing, I want to recreate that. I don't worry too much about being original. I mean, I want to be original, and
Hmm.
I hope that people see that I strive for it. But at the same time, I just want to tell good stories, and
Yeah.
I want people to be excited with me, like where these directions that I take Wildcat, and ultimately, Wildcat. For anyone that doesn't know, he's kind of like this wild character, hence the name Wildcat, who gets in all kinds of shenanigans, finds himself in awkward situations, and kind of drawing a little bit from Ash from Evil Dead. Um, and he heals really quick. He's got gray skin. He's got these razor sharp talons that can cut through anything. He's got a cybernetic eye that basically does all kinds of Terminator stuff. It can shoot laser blast. It can crawl out of his head like a spider
Hmm.
and do all kinds of neat stuff. Um, he's got heightened senses and all this wonderful stuff. And eventually, after the anthology's done, I want to tell a story with him where you kind of get a little bit of his origin, because it's a mystery. He don't remember who he is, where he comes from. Uh, a lot of people start to nickname him Dean as like a first name, but then he's given the last name of Lazarus, because the the origin story, or the kind of the new origin story after the anthology's over, and we tell it later on, is that Wildcat basically rises from the grave after being murdered, and with no memory who he is, and he befriends this girl, and together they go on this journey to explore this strange town where strange things happen, and trying to get to the bottom of the mysteries that are there, but also the mystery of who he is. And his past is kind of dark, and so he's got a little bit of a redemption arc that he has to go through, and she's got hers as well. She's got her own demons that she's battling. But anyway, but in the anthology, what I wanted to do with that is I just wanted everybody to have fun and kind of do whatever they wanted with this character. It's 6 different creative teams, and everybody had the freedom to do whatever they wanted to do. I just told them to have fun. And some people come up with characters for him to fight. Some used stuff that's a little bit more public domain and that sort of thing. Like werewolves and what have you. And 8 pages per creator. I did something like 32.
Hmm.
And the reason for that is I wanted to tie it all together. If you all have seen the really awesome animated movie Heavy Metal, I always loved that they had this floating orb, this green floating orb that had like a mystery to it or whatever, and it would go to all these different places, and and a new story would unfold. Well, I
Hmm.
wanted to do something like that to where I could take all these different Wildcat stories and tie them together. So in this anthology comic, Wildcat is captured by the evil Dr. Terror, and he wants to know where the location of the Ascani Shigorn is. this mysterious object that's really important for whatever reason. And he's not even bothering to ask Wildcat questions because he's basically experimenting and torturing him, trying to drill into his head to get the answers. And as he's doing that, and Wildcat blacks out or whatever, or he hooks up a monitor, we start to see inside Wildcat's head, and that is each one of these stories that's in the anthology.
Mm-hmm. Nice. That's interesting.
And by the way, I'm going to be putting up more images from the anthology on the Indiegogo campaign for people to look at. Right now, we've got I think we got some stuff from me. We've got some stuff from Sideburns. We have some stuff from R.J. Johnston, but I still need to get. I think. We got Jan's stuff, so I still need to get Abel Parsons and Peter Palmiotti's and Allison McGlone. Hopefully, I'm pronouncing her last name right. I need to get their stuff up on there as well.
You gotta yeah, it's interesting. There's a lot of really cool takes. Like like you got Wildcat in a like a office situation with Rob Johnston's one, so that's interesting
Yeah,
too.
yeah, I really love that. I thought that was pretty cool. As
He almost reminds me of like Savage Dragon because he's got almost like a cop outfit on.
yeah, yeah, I like that.
That's cool. Then of course Jan is so dope. Like I love his stuff. So cool.
Yeah, it's very interesting. You know, like I don't know if my comparisons are accurate, but he reminds me of like a mix between Rick Leonardi
Mm-hmm.
with the sharp lines he does and the curved strokes and stuff, and in the jagged edges and stuff. Kind of very Rick Leonardi-ish with a dash of a little bit of George Perez and something else. I
Yeah.
can't really put my finger on it,
Mm-hmm.
but
Yeah.
it's really cool.
It's totally. Yeah, I love it. Yeah, man, it's good stuff. Let's see. So yeah, if you guys
Oh,
want-
and I forgot Peter DeLuca. Sorry, Peter. I need to put his stuff up on images of his work too on the Indiegogo campaign for people to look at. And I'm planning on making another video too, so I can put everybody's stuff in there.
mm-hmm.
Sorry, I got a mouthful. It's like if I don't blurt it out, what time I'm thinking of it, I never will. You know.
No, I know it's always hard to kind of remember all the things and everything.
Yeah.
So yeah, man. It's just it's really cool. I'm glad you're finally kind of getting it out and stuff. You've been working on it for so long, and it's
Yeah.
cool that there's so many different variations of the stories. You know, I feel like the thing is with this kind of thing is, you know, people I think people get a little bit worried about like when they create something, like if it goes into somebody else's hands or something, it's like, oh, are they gonna do something weird with it or this or that? But it's like the thing is like you've created this character, you have your story in there, and I like how you've kind of made it so it works so that the stories can be whatever, you know. But it's like your iteration is going to be the de facto one, you know. The first Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, you know, by Eastman and Laird, like that's if anybody wants to see what the original vision was, they just go back to that, read that, you know. It's no
Yeah.
big deal, you know. So it's like it kind of doesn't matter. I think people get a little bit too hung up on that, you know, but it kind of doesn't matter. Like that's the way I feel with Glyph. Like if I ever do Glyph properly, worst case scenario, people can always go back to the mini comics. It's up on Webtoons, you know, and like see kind of where the vision started and where it develops. They can always go back to whatever it is that I make and say, okay, that's what he originally thought, and I also like this other version too, and whatever. That's cool, man.
You know, that's really interesting. You know, it's like how life works out. You know, when when I think about how I wanted my comic book career, you know, I say that in quotation marks or
Mhm.
whatever career, but but whatever I am, I'm a
You're a
indie
creator.
comic guy. I'm a creator. I'm a
Mhm.
creator. But how I pictured things going and working out, like I would go work for Marvel DC and I would go do work on this book or that book, do that for a while. And then maybe I would go here or start my own company. And then I would go release WildCat and, you know, have the admiration of all the fans and
Mhm.
have all the accolades and the love of my peers because I'm so awesome. But it's strange how life works, because you read all these interviews of these paths that have been blazed, that have been walked and well tread by the people that came before you, and you're thinking, okay, I'm going to go down this same path, because that's where your hero went, and it don't work that way. It doesn't work that way at all, and when it came to doing Wildcat and stuff, that was born out of the 100 Days of Making Comics challenge.
Mm.
Um, I kind of view that as I I feel like sometimes I sound like a narcissist, but when I think about the 100 Days of Making Comics challenge, I kind of view it as like the indie comics version of American Idol. Where everybody has a chance to put themselves out there and to audition before a worldwide audience on YouTube or whatever blogging platform, because that was one of the criteria. 30 minutes a day, every day, upload a video, work on your comic, and you do that for I can't remember 100 days, 100 days. Ugh. And I never pictured myself getting started working on Wildcat seriously, but I needed something to do. I started out trying to get a portfolio done, and then I started working on Wildcat because my good buddy Will Avenger's like, hey, why don't you do Wildcat? You conned me into working on my character. Why don't you do it? I'm like, all
Mm.
right. And so I start working on it. I made this. I got like this first issue of it. It's pretty much finished, but it's just not lettered. And I did an Indiegogo for it, and it failed.
Mm.
Failed. It raised $600 of a $1,500 go, and that was rough. But I'm glad that it happened, because what ended up happening is I went back to the drawing board and I actually written a better story for the first issue, and the
Mhm.
art's actually going to be better whenever I get back around to it. And as I was doing the reboot of the first issue, I was live streaming and I was just talking like, yeah, like one day I'd like to have a second Wildcat book. If, I know it's like way out there in a big what if, but if things were ever popular, I could have, like the Savage World of Wildcat, and people could work on that book. I could put them on there, and I could take my time on the main Wildcat title and draw other stuff, other books that I want to do. And then somehow I blurted out this idea that I wanted to do an anthology.
Mhm.
I don't know if I put it in those terms, but and all of a sudden in the chat, one or two people's like, "I'd like to do that."
Mhm.
Hey, yeah, I'm interested in doing that. I'm like, what? Really?
Mhm.
And then I kind of got it took on a life of its own. This whole anthology thing, it just happened.
Yeah.
And but anyway, like I guess the whole point of me bringing all that up is like I never imagined that the first appearance of Wildcat would be in this anthology comic.
Mhm.
You know, where it's not me solely at the helm with sole control. You
Mm.
know, there's other people that are contributing their stories and their takes and interpretations of Wildcat based off that defunct first issue that never made it. You know, so it's interesting. It's crazy how life works out.
Well, it is interesting, and one thing too is like, um, most of the most popular comic characters that we know actually came from anthologies.
Yeah,
Batman came from an anthology, Superman came from anthology. Spider-Man came from Anthology, Doctor Strange, like like many, it's almost harder to find one that hasn't, I mean, Fantastic Four didn't, X-Men didn't, but like so many other ones did, so you're actually putting yourself within the same tradition of some of the greats,
Yeah,
if
I
you think
like
about
that.
it.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I think that's pretty cool, man. Yeah, and actually, I think I think it's pretty obvious. Like, if there's any character that Wildcat resembles, it would kind of be like Pitt. It's Pitt
Mhm.
really,
Oh yeah,
and,
yeah.
and
I'll be
Pitt
honest. Pitt's a big influence. Yeah,
and
yeah.
Pitt's first appearance, I think, was in
Young
Youngblood.
blood.
Yeah, it wasn't even his own comic. It was just the first few pages of Pitt, and then months later, I think Pitt came out. So.
Yeah, I think I can't remember, but it seemed like the story behind that Todd McFarlane was calling up Dale Keown, trying to convince him to leave Marvel off of Hulk, and
Mhm.
somehow their relationship kind of fizzled at some point, and then Rob Liefeld's like, "Hey, I can't remember what he offered, but it was like I don't know if it was like $30,000 or $20,000, some
Mhm.
big number. Like
Yeah.
come draw like 5 or 6 pages of something in the back of Young Blood,"
Mhm.
and that's how that happened.
Yeah.
He's like, "Yeah, okay," and
Mhm.
it must have been like getting paid to just do those couple pages versus doing like 22 to 24 pages from Marvel is like a no brainer for him. And then that's kind of how that whole thing happened.
Yeah, yeah, I heard that story too. That's I love Observations. It's such a great podcast, and that's where I heard it from. I don't know if that's where you heard it from, but it's just like, and something else you mentioned earlier, you were talking about was like how fun the '90s comics were, and I love that you brought that up because I feel like that is kind of the key. Like, it's not meant to be like, you know, hey, this is my version of like Watchmen. Like, I'm gonna blow the world away, or like my Dark Knight Returns. Like, those guys, were awesome, and they changed the face of comics, but that's not, I don't think, what the kind of like the Image guys and the stuff that we're talking about that we're inspired by. It's more like, this is just like some people, kind of some characters that look awesome, and they're like fighting, and there is story to it, there's mystery. Like, when I go back and read like some of these comics like Spawn, or like Young Blood, or um you know X-Force, X-Men, Uncanny X-Men, like some of this stuff that was like where the '90s guys kind of came from. um, I enjoy the stories. Like, I think they're fun. Like, I don't they're yeah, sure, they're not necessarily the most deepest like thing, but fun is the name of the game. And I'm like, yeah, like, I'm like, okay, yeah, what does happen with that character? Like, think about like X-Force, like Cable, and like, where is he from? Like, these other characters like Deadpool, like, what's the deal with him? Like, and through the years we've learned some of that stuff, what the deal is and stuff. But like, it's I don't know, to me that was enjoyable storytelling, and I mean, it didn't have to be like super like amazing, like, I don't know, there's a better word, to like, super sophisticated,
Yeah.
storytelling. But at the same time, it was fun, enjoyable, and right up my alley, at least.
Yeah. There was, um, like in terms of Image, there was a few books that were fairly well written. And then there were others that were just a lot of stuff from Extreme Studios was just bare basics, bad guy, let's go smash, you know. But I might be oversimplifying it because they did have some really good books. I was fond of, even though Young Blood looked really cool, I felt like Brigade was a solid book
Hmm.
with Marat Michaels. I think that's how you pronounce his name, Marat Michaels. I always say like Marriott or something like that, but Marat.
Yeah.
I thought he did a really good job on that, and I always like what Dan Fraga or Dan Fraga was doing on stuff like I think it was called the Berserkers.
Yeah, he
And I
did
did,
Berserkers.
yeah,
He did Blood. What is it?
Bloodstrike.
Blood.
I didn't
Blood.
know he did Bloodstrike until recently. You
I
know,
didn't. I didn't either. I didn't either. And then I
yeah, he
loved
did
his
a
Black
lot.
Flag too. That's
Yeah,
where I remember him from, was Black Flag, and I
yeah,
always was like, he was like one of the, like, I my thing was Liefeld. Like, I just loved Liefeld's stuff. And
yeah.
then, like, when he wasn't doing stuff, I was like, some of these other guys, they're okay. But when I saw Dan Frag, I was like, oh, I could get into him. He's got some cool stuff.
Yeah, I think what hurt Image later on is when they started to actually get writers to write their stuff.
Hmm.
A lot of the founders weren't really working on their books anymore.
Yeah.
They started, kind of drifting away, or for some reason just going in different directions. I mean, you,
Hmm.
you got like on Wildcats, you had the amazing Travis Charis or
Hmm. I think
Charay.
it's Chiray.
Is it
Yeah.
Charay?
Yeah. I didn't know how to pronounce it though until recently.
Travis Charay.
Uh-huh.
He really started coming into his own at the beginning of it, and then he got like amazingly good in the later half of the run, the Wildcats. And I think they had at one point Alan Moore was writing it, and Chris Claremont was writing it. Um, and it was trying to find its sea legs and stuff like that. But Jim Lee wasn't drawing it.
Mm.
Also you had other books that were sort of like that. Rob Liefeld eventually, kind of left off Young Blood, and he was very sporadic. He would draw like one or two issues of Bad Rock. He would,
Mhm.
he would draw like 4 or 5 pages in the Valiant Image crossover, Death Maid or something like that.
Mhm.
Uh, eventually going to Marvel and doing Captain America, but and then you look at Todd McFarlane when he was doing Spawn.
Yeah.
When if you notice the first 13 or 15 issues of Spawn, I think are pretty good. It's interesting. He's introducing, he's doing a lot of this world building, and the visuals are awesome. But the minute he hires somebody else to draw it,
Mhm.
Spawn's stuck in the alleyway for the next 50 issues. You
Yeah.
know, so he's no longer kind of traveling around and doing interesting things.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, but it's still good. I really I do like Todd's run on Spawn, and I also like Greg Capullo's run on
Yeah.
Spawn.
Yeah, that was the thing. When the thing is like, the Image was built off of like these like top-notch superstar, artists. Like, when I say top-notch, I mean like exciting stuff I was
Yeah,
into. I realized they're no like Neil Adams, or they're no like, John, like some of these, John Buscema and stuff. Like, they're not technically as amazing as some of them, but like for me, they brought that energy and excitement, and that was the stuff I was into. So to me, but they were like, artist superstars, and that's what the strength of that's what Image was built on. And that, like, they should have just kept I don't know, in my opinion, it kind of broke my heart when each one of them kind of slowly faded away.
yeah,
Thankfully, Eric Larson never stopped drawing, Savage Dragon, and I
yeah,
think that's awesome because Savage Dragon is just really cool. And so, anyways, like, yeah, Greg Capullo took over, Spawn, and I was like, I mean, at that time, I didn't know that Greg Capullo would become Greg Capullo, but like,
yeah,
back then it was not. It was like, this is not Todd McFarlane. This is like hack stuff compared to. Even though now I look back at those
yeah,
issues and I'm like, damn, Greg Capullo could draw back then too. But it just was not what I wanted. I wanted Todd McFarlane drawing my, my Spawn
yeah,
book. And now Greg Capullo is like, I almost would wish he would go back on Spawn because he's freaking sick, but he's doing some other awesome stuff too. So
yeah. He's
um
went back to the Creech, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
Or going back to the Creech, I
I'm
think.
looking forward to that, and
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to Peter Palmiotti mentioned Dale Keown's doing Pit again, I guess. So I know
Yeah.
that there's been some talk of that. I haven't paid attention to it, but like, yeah, hell yeah, that sounds awesome.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember the name of the guy that's going to be writing it. Oof, I'll think of it later. But I
Mhm.
actually talked to the guy, and I threw out an idea to him, and he responded back. With the thumbs up or something like that. But I told him that whenever they do uh, roll out Pit, brand new Pit pages from Del Keon, put a new Pit book out, that me personally, what I would like to see is, and this is going to sound lame, but I want to see like a greatest hits Pit. And what I mean by that is I want some new stuff, but I want to see the greatest hits, and it's sort of like
Pitts hits.
Pit's hits. It's like, all right, let me put it to you like this. When Jim Lee and Chris Claremont was tagged up together on the X-Men, eventually what Jim Lee did was he did the greatest hits of the X-Men. So
Mhm, yeah.
he went back to the Neil Adams stuff with the Sentinels and all that in the Savage Land. He
Mhm,
went back to some of the stuff with John Burns, but they went all the way back when they rebooted with the first issue by basically kind of doing what James Cameron does really well with sequels. He does the same movie but better.
mhm.
Um, well, yeah. Well, anyway, he does it better, and so they did that with X-Men, because in the first issue, X-Men, what do the X-Men fight? They fight Magneto. He's at a base trying to get nuclear warheads, and in the rebooted X-Men in the '90s, same thing again, except for it's a sunken submarine, and he's trying to get nukes out of that, and
Mhm.
uh, and it's like taking something that's already been done, but reintroducing it to a new audience and doing it in a slight different way, to where it's not boring or offensive to older readers.
Mhm.
And I want to see something like that with Pitt, where I told it might be Nate Diaz or
It's right
Diaz.
below here. You can see
Yeah.
Peter put it
Oh,
in
there it is. Thank,
there.
thank
Phil
you, thank
Diaz.
you, Peter. Phil Diaz. Phil
Mm,
Diaz. Yes, thank you. Um, I think he's writing it, and um, I told him that what I would like to see is the greatest hits, and to basically, I want them to take Pitt and put him back in the '90s, have him time travel
mhm,
back to the '90s. I want to see Timmy as a kid again,
mm,
because I feel like there's a bunch of stories that they could have told with that they missed out on,
mm,
because there was, like, after the first 13 issues or so, they fast forwarded the storyline to where Timmy was a teenager,
mhm,
and he wasn't really that likable as far
mm,
as I can remember. So I want to make him a kid again. I want to bring back Grandpa. I thought that would be cool to see
mm,
Grandpa again, and to see those. I guess they were Canadian heroes. The big Sauron or whatever his name is, the green dude, and the guy with the bracelets, and the guy in the wheelchair, and Ray or something with the sword.
mhm.
Um, I can't remember, but bring back Zoid, but introduce new stuff too. So
Yeah,
so it ain't just like a big nostalgia ride.
yeah.
And because that's one of the things that I liked, like when I would read Incredible Hulk, is like you get new creative teams that would dig up the old stuff, and you
Mm,
get to see their take on it.
yeah.
And
Yeah,
now that he's already built this universe, he could do some cool stuff with it.
Todd McFarlane did that with Spider-Man too, it's really cool to see, like, the
Yeah.
rogues galleries come back and stuff, so I think that's a great idea, actually. That's cool that you hit him up about that.
Yeah, I mean, they wouldn't have to reinvent the wheel. I mean, still introduce new stuff, because if you don't do that, then it will be sort of boring, even though it will look cool.
Mhm. Yeah,
Um, but give people what they want to see.
yeah,
Uh, because
totally.
I feel like those first 6 or 7 issues are Pit, or 8 issues is that to me is Pit. The rest of the stuff that came afterwards, Pit too, but it just didn't have the same charm to it. I mean, he started changing his style, and he became like super crisp, and the stories were kind of going in a different direction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. Peter brought up the Jay Lee, which that's another one, like, because I was saying like Dan Fraga was one of the ones, but like, yeah, Jay Lee was exciting too. Um, I don't know, like for some reason it didn't hit me as exciting back then, even though I did like it. But now I've been looking back at a lot like Jay Lee's stuff, and
Mm.
I have at least one of the Wildcats issues and one of the Young Bloods, and it's so good. I have Hell Shock, and I'm like, man, like this is like, I don't know, it's just it kind of brought a lot of the cool things together, like kind of that like that crazy like Liefeld style, like with all the marks, but then some Mike Mignola with like the all the blacks in there, and it was just like it is some designy, like really cool stuff what Jay Lee was doing, man.
Yeah,
I really did.
it's like a really cool nightmare. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah. That's
I
a
mean,
good
it's
put
hard to describe it, because because if you try to describe it, then people look at it like, well, it's not that at all. It's this, but then they won't be able to describe it either.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, he's a really good artist. I remember him like, well, I first got introduced to him from doing some back issues, kind of like 2 or 3 page back of the book stuff for Young Blood.
Mm-hmm.
But I may have seen his stuff earlier on Namer or
Mm-hmm.
Namor, um, or that might have came after. But I missed out on a lot of the Hell Shock stuff. I mean, I remember seeing it
Mm-hmm.
on the stands and stuff, but there was just so much stuff. I
Yeah.
mean, when you got that, and you got Archie versus the Punisher, um,
Yeah.
and all kinds of wacky doodle things. You got these Valiant books you don't know nothing about, and then you got Defiant and Techno Comics, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's crazy.
I
It's just
think
it's awesome time. You just
yeah.
great books everywhere.
I think Peter was working at Valiant at that time or something, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, I didn't know that.
It's crazy.
I know that he had done some Marvel stuff and some DC stuff. Like when I was really surprised to learn that the Marvel stuff that he did was, I could be wrong about this, but was before Heroes Were Born, and according to Rob Liefeld, before Heroes Were Born was going down. I mean, the deal was signed 6 months before they debuted anything, and
Mhm.
so all the editors at Marvel were panicking because they were scared that this was going to be a kind of like a hostile takeover.
Mm.
And so they tried to boost the sales of these books that were fledgling, Captain America and Iron Man, Avengers, and all the books that basically that they was going to be taking over. Fantastic Four. I mean, around that time, I just remember the books being really cool because they pulled off this really awesome artist. One of my favorites, Carlos Pacheco, off of Excalibur, and they're putting him on Fantastic Four with Tom DeFalco.
Mhm.
Oh, that's going to be cool. And then Ron Garney and Mark Waid was having their acclaimed run on Captain America. They moved Mike. I can't pronounce his last name. Brazilian artist. Everybody knows him. Debuta. They put him on from Avengers onto Thor with Warren Ellis writing it and doing some cool stuff. And then on Iron Man, bringing it back full circle. Iron Man, they had this Age of Innocence thing where basically Iron Man, who kind of, I think he was siding with Kang the Conqueror or something. I can't remember what it was. And so the Avengers went back in time and got a young version of Iron Man,
Mm.
and he ended up becoming Iron Man. It was really, really cool. And he was supposed to be the new Iron Man because the old man, drunk Iron Man, Tony Stark, died.
Mm.
And I was like, wow, this is really cool. I was looking forward to it. And they went and did Heroes Reborn, and then when after it was over and they did Heroes Return, they didn't run with the boy thing. I think they should have. I think Iron Man has never been a big seller, at least as far as I know, to Marvel. But it was surprising to learn that Peter Palmiotti
Yeah.
worked on those Iron Man books.
That's really
I
cool.
was like, wow, really?
Yeah. Yeah, it is so cool. I've had Peter on the show a bunch of times, and we talked about a lot of this stuff. I had a few books published by Image, but didn't work for them. Missed the boat. But didn't you do? I think you did like Valiant. Feel like I remember you talking about you worked with Valiant too. But either way, man. I would have like. Man, that would have been so cool to be working in the industry at that time. Like
Oh yeah.
I feel like I it's like the dream. Oh, Peter says they canceled the Iron Man storyline. Yeah. That's the thing, man. Like you were saying, like you wish like certain things continued for longer, and that's the thing, like, because even um like the Youngblood stuff I've been looking through again, because I don't care what people say about Liefeld. I love that early Youngblood and X-Force stuff. Like it's
Yeah.
so, to me, I just love it. And I was reading it, and I'm like, there's like some interesting threads here that I really like. I didn't read past like when Liefeld stopped drawing it, so I don't know like if they ever tied up any of those threads. But there's like, even like there's like the one character, Sci-Fire. Like he's not like, nobody ever almost even remember almost like talks about him. I don't know if he stayed in the book. He's like right here. Because I have them all like hanging out here, but like that guy floating there or whatever, that's
Uh,
Sci-Fire. And I
the,
mean,
the the guy with the green flame hair.
yeah, no, the this one, right there.
Okay,
This one.
okay, okay.
and
Yeah,
and he like basically kills Saddam Hussein. It's not Saddam Hussein, but it's Saddam Hussein. Like,
yeah,
and I'm like, and it's just, he just seems like kind of a psychotic character, and I'm like, I kind of want to see what happens with him, but just like, also like just these different characters, like they just reference like all these like, oh, back when I was on this planet, this and this happened, and you're like, I want to find out what happens with that, like, like there's all these like loose ends and stuff. And he was doing that with X-Force too, and luckily some of that did come out, in the story and everything. But like, it's just like all that stuff to me is like, yeah, why I wish, like, I almost want to like take it from those issues and see if I could develop it. It's like, because there's just like interesting fodder for story, you know what I mean? And that's actually what's been really inspiring me lately. I'm like, I want to get back to that kind of stuff, because I want to do that with my stories, with my comics and stuff too. So I don't know. It's just, there's so much stuff, like, and I loved like reading comics, and you would go through like 2, 3, 4 pages and be introduced to a new character, and then another few pages, oh, there's another new character. Like it could be a bad guy, could be like somebody else, like, but there's like always like these characters being created, and I'm like, I just love that. I love being introduced to new characters. All this,
yeah,
it's just fun. Like
yeah,
you said, it's just fun, and I want that back, because like you look at comics now, and it's like they're either like kind of like the, I don't know. There's so many different things, but I don't see fun so much usually. Sometimes there is like some things that are fun, but a lot of times I don't see that fun factor, and that just, it's cool. It's cool and it's fun. It sounds
yes.
like very surface, but that's what I want in my comics.
It's like modern comics. There are some good books out there. Um, and in the modern comic book industry, they have good
Yeah.
years where they have more good books than bad,
Mhm.
and then sometimes it's in the reverse. But nothing like how it was in the '90s, in the early millennium, when I feel like it reached the zenith. And it's sort of like, I don't know, when I think of modern comics, the '90s comics fun, modern comics a chore. It feels like a chore to me.
Yeah.
because some of these books open them up, and like every time I see like some preview of the new X-Men, what are they always doing? They're sitting around a table gossiping and talking about stuff and acting like they're making important decisions. Um, and it just looks boring.
Mhm.
It's they've taken it and made it a really, I mean, I think there's soap operas that are probably more entertaining, because the idea of taking the X-Men and always having them sitting around trying to play Scooby-Doo and solve some mystery, and they're just sitting around talking, and they're sitting around with all some of their biggest enemies. Uh, I mean, I'm sure there's some great stories that come out of that, but to me, the X-Men are doing X stuff. They're going out there and they're punching things, they're exploding things,
Mhm.
they're doing that sort of thing, but instead the whole theme of the X-Men now is they've entirely separated themselves from humanity, and they should be living in paradise, I
Mhm.
guess, but apparently not. But it ain't just them, it's like all the books that I loved growing up have lost their way. They it's like the people that make them now don't understand what made those characters great in the first
Mhm.
place.
Yeah.
I mean, Batman is like a whiny teenager.
Mhm.
I don't want to relate to Batman. The
Mhm.
you know,
Mhm.
I want, I don't think anybody should relate to Batman. Batman is this guy who is borderline psychotic, because his family gets killed before his eyes. As a child, it had to impact him in a big way, in a dark way. He fights crime, so supposedly no one else has to experience it. And he, for some reason, he's always getting these orphans uh, to work with him with big bright colors.
Mhm.
Um, and he's a man of few words, but every time I see a Batman book nowadays, he's always whining and crying and trying
Mhm.
to get Catwoman, and that's not his priority. I mean, he's a man obsessed with fighting
Mhm.
crime, But anyway, the point is, a lot of modern comics, I feel like they've lost their way one way or another, and there's many other channels that document and they have their opinions on why that is. But at the end of the day, I feel like when I look at them, it just feels like a chore to read them.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not fun. There's nothing fun visually happening, and nothing fun wordsmith wise in the spirit of like people like Alan Moore
Mhm.
in the writers of the 80s and the 90s that were
Yeah.
going on. Well, the 80s and the millennium was a good time for writers. Early
Yeah.
millennium.
Yeah, it's interesting, and like I totally agree. Like it becomes a chore, and comics, they should be whatever people want, who creative want them to be, but at the same time, I still want there to be that tradition of the fun comic that you just go in, you have a good time, and you enjoy it.
Yeah.
And throughout history too, like certain characters have certainly lost their way. Like even like you think of Batman, like for a while, Batman and Superman, especially, like that stuff got like super goofy. Like after the Batman TV show came out, like it got like really goofy. But the thing is that TV show was always meant to be a parody, and so it was great for what it was like, but it wasn't like that's not what Batman is. So, but the comics ended up imitating that, and things like
Hmm.
that. And then you had, people like Neil Adams come in and be like, no, that's not Batman. Batman is this, and brings him back to what he's supposed to be, and you got that even with Rob Liefeld, and he kind of brought some interesting things. Like he started on Hawk and Dove and some other things, but like he went over to New Mutants. He went into the X offices, and it's like New Mutants at that time. I mean, obviously there was Bill Sienkiewicz, who did some really cool stuff with New Mutants, but like at the time, New Mutants was kind of boring. It was kind of like how a lot of the X books
Yeah.
are now, like just kind of kids going to the mall and doing this and that. And it's like, Rob Liefeld was like, let's bring some action in here. Let's bring some interesting
Yeah.
stuff. And then he turns it into like a straight up X book, you know, but a different flavor X book,
Mhm.
you know. And it's like he brought the fun back into it, you know. And it's like, you know, I don't know, to me he did. And same even, you know, with a lot of these creators. Like, so you need like visionaries to come in. I mean, you know, things like what did Frank Miller, you know, do to like Daredevil and then to Batman, like, you know, it, it takes, you know, somebody with a vision to come bring the excitement back. And you know, I hope that that does happen, you know, for the Marvel books and stuff and for the DC books, you know, because though there's such a legacy of those characters and there's still a lot of good story to be told. Like you said, like Pitt, like bring the greatest hits. Like, yeah, I think that's a great idea, you know, and tell some more story with it. Like, tell the in between stories that weren't told, you know, or something. I don't know, but you know,
Yeah.
there's so much cool stuff, and there's no reason why they can't be as fun as they were. I feel like.
Yeah, I agree. I think for me, I've kind of given up on Marvel and DC. You know, I mean, they still put out some good books here and there, and
Mm-hmm.
um, but I feel like they have a different mission statement and a different goal where they want to go, and they're not really worried about profit anymore with comics because uh, they're more focused on using those books as an intellectual property farm for film and you know, television and that sort of thing. You know, because that's where they make their bread and butter at now. And you know, I hope one day that the one thing that will save a lot of those characters, in my opinion, and bring them back to their roots is if they lease them out to studios like Dynamite and IDW, where you know those companies are absolutely for profit. You know, in the print realm,
Mm-hmm.
and then you'll see a lot of these characters return back to their roots, and I think it'll be a lot better if Marvel and DC would do that with
Mm-hmm.
their characters. I mean, I always hold out hope that one day maybe they'll get a new publisher for each one of these companies, editor in chief that will say, okay, we're gonna go back to making books that are artist centric. We're gonna go back to you know, if it ain't broken, don't try to fix it. You know, don't try to reinvent the wheel. Let's just crank it out. And you know, but I don't hold out hope for that hope happening anytime soon. So I think the future of comics is what we're doing right now. Is
Mm-hmm.
indie comics, because I feel like a lot of those old people that created these characters that we love. Uh, a lot of them are dead and gone. They're retired, or they got shown the door. They were
Mm-hmm.
told to leave,
Yeah.
and but we're left with the legacy of those characters, the memories of those stories.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like as indie creators, um, we get to pick up that ball. You know, Marvel and DC don't want that no more, or maybe they think they still do, but it's not quite the same. But we'll take that ball
Mm-hmm.
and we'll do something with it. And like, okay, here, you know, you might not be able to have the Spider-Man that you grew up with and love, you know, and all this other stuff. And now he's very whiny and crying all the time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but we can give you Fish Boy, and his first appearance is in the anthology.
There you go.
You know, you got Wolverine, who's no longer the toughest, uh, interesting, you know, character with Edge and Marvel and stuff like that. You know, apparently everybody and their mother's tougher than Wolverine now. Well, that's all right. We got Wildcat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the point is, we get to take that stuff that we love growing up and reintroducing it in cool new ways to a new audience, so that way they can have that same excitement that we had, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And it's like you know, some people be like, yeah, you know, ain't that rehashing this and that. Well, I'm not going to try to rehash anything if I can help it. I want to be original.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, if you look at Stephen King's novels, basically he takes two things and
Mm-hmm.
puts them together.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at Salem's Lot, and I know this sounds bad, but I watched it for the first time, you know, a
Mhm.
couple weeks ago.
Yeah,
Guilty.
no
I'm
problem.
sorry. But finally watched it, and it's pretty good. It's a pretty good movie, and basically it's a movie about a haunted house. But then he was like, that's not good enough. Let's put some vampires in it. It's a haunted house that attracts evil people or evil things.
Mhm.
And the whole premise is, what if a evil haunted house attracted vampires to come live in it? And it's
Mhm.
just really interesting. And I remember after I watched it, it's like, wow, that's basically all he does. He takes two things and puts them together, and he makes a new thing. It's like, and then I guess like he didn't like the results of Salem Lot. That's just my opinion. I've never read that because
Mhm.
I felt like he tried it again. He's like, I think I can do this better. So a couple years later, he written The Shining,
Mhm.
a haunted house with someone that is going insane, and well, the haunted house and psychics instead of vampires. He replaced it with psychics,
Yeah.
and I feel like he produced better results with that. And but anyway, yeah, that's all stuff is, and I don't know why I even went that route. I just kind of spitballing this stuff comes in my head.
Well, yeah, I mean, I totally agree though. Like that's exactly actually where I wanted to go next, and you did it, which was like, yeah, indie comics is the future, I feel like, and it has been really for a long time, and it even more now than it ever has been. And what people, I mean, Robert Johnston's in the chat. I mean, how many titles have you worked on, Robert? Like, and you got a whole bunch of stuff. You go to his website and he's got all kinds of comics. It's really dope. And like,
Oh, Robert.
yeah, yeah.
Oh
And
yeah, he's got at least four things. Like, I mean, like on his website, you can read for free,
mm-hmm.
like pretty much whole issues of stuff that he's
Yep.
got published. I think My Little Skull. I keep saying My Littlest Skull. I don't know, it just rolls off the tongue. But My Little Skull, I think that's it.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I think Gruntle,
Mm-hmm.
Gruntle, uh, Paylor. I might be pronouncing it wrong. Paylor. It's like a Viking looking dude.
Mm-hmm.
And the Reverend. That's
Hmm.
four. I
Yeah.
feel like I might be missing the fifth, but like he's got all these free books that people can go read. These are colored, lettered, the whole 9 yards.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I agree too, like that, putting things together. Because to be honest, like again, we sit here, we talk about like, oh, that's not original, oh, that looks like that. But I mean, if you actually go back to the beginning of comics, superhero comics, all of those are mishmashing of other things too. Like Batman comes from the shadow and a bunch of
Yeah,
other things, like Superman, all this stuff. Like, they all are mishmashes of something else with a little bit of a twist on it. And it's like that's what we're doing too. Like, screw it. Like, I don't care. Like, right now,
yeah,
I'm coming up with a whole bunch of ideas for a comic, and it's like it's totally me taking like everything I'm influenced by and making like my version of it. So, it's the way it is. And yeah, Robert Johnson brings this, and I think of this all the time. I don't always bring it up because it's like, this isn't a hip hop channel, but I'm so into hip hop. But yeah, like sampling is like huge. That's how in the 90s, that's how we made beats. And still I still do. I do a lot of stuff, but like it's like you take pieces of things and you make it your own, and that's how it's always really been done. And so much awesome stuff that people think is original has come out of that process, and it's not even as original as they realize. They don't even realize how unoriginal, not unoriginal, but how much is taken from so many other sources. Like, even one thing I think of too is like Sin City. Like, I feel like that art seemed like it revolutionary and everybody started to like copy it. That art, he stole that art style from another artist. Like,
yeah,
that's not the first time that style has been done, but he did it in such a way that was so dope, and it also had the Frank Miller-esque lines too, everything is a mishmash of something else. And I think, like we've been saying, like this indie comics thing, like I'm just, to me, I'm like, right now I'm digging into my roots, and I'm just like, I want to put stuff out there, and I feel like that's what you're doing with Wildcat, man. Like that's, it's like when I see you do that, I'm like, yes, yes, let's do that. And like everybody who's listening and watching, like, you want to get in on some of this indie action, you got to go over to the Wildcat Indiegogo anthology. Like it is, it's going to be something to behold for sure, man. And there's links again in the description, and I'm going to put the link in the chat again. But
Yes.
yeah, it's, you got to check this out and support it, man, because this is the stuff that we're talking about. Like we're all trying to kind of do these kind of things together. And if you want to read fun comics, like this is how you get into it.
Oh, and if I was actually professional, I would have mentioned at the beginning of the show that it's an 80-page book. It's
Yes,
80 pages.
of
I, I,
various stories.
but again, like I said, to be fair, the universe is conspiring against me. I was an hour late for one interview, and I almost missed this one because the internet didn't work. But I had to appeal to God to intervene on my behalf so I could
Yes.
even do this. Because these wacky doodle things always happen to me. Some of it's my fault, but sometimes the universe is out to get me. But making comics, going back to that inkwell, or I can't remember how it was that you phrased it, but going back to that source of those things that you grew up on that made you happy.
Hmm.
It seems like, sometimes I could be wrong on this. When you're like an indie creator, you kind of get lost, like thinking like, well, I'm going to do this thing, and it's a thing that you enjoy, that you've seen somebody else do. So I'm going to kind of go in this direction or that direction. But at some point, like, uh, those things that really made you excited as a kid and as a teenager are probably the things that you should always kind of go back to, uh, because it's like embedded in your DNA. I know at one point, I've eh, here I am again sounding narcissistic, but I've studied everybody and their mother that's a comic book artist at one point or another. All the image founders and a lot of the people that worked under them. All the people that grew out of that, and some of the people that made it big in the 90s, had the image people left at Marvel and DC. I've studied them at one point or another, trying to, emulate their style or take bits and pieces of their style and all this other stuff. But I think it's funny, like when I draw naturally, and I'm not looking at anything or trying to ape nothing or trying to be fancy, all this stuff starts coming out. And then I'll start looking at some 90s books and like, I got that from Chap Yep. What the heck? That's the reason I draw that thing the way I do, or that nose or whatever. I got that from Jeff Matsuda. I got
Hmm.
that from Rob Liefeld.
Hmm.
I got this from this and this. And like for some reason, as you get older, not all people, some people that's dumb like me, we run from those things that we love because I don't know if we're chasing popularity or we think that this is a better route to go. But my headspace now is like, don't run from that stuff. That's part of who you are. That's what you enjoy. And, if you want to draw like that, write like that, just do that. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
That's part of the fun of it, because if you get enjoyment out of it and you get enjoyment out of making it, people are probably going to enjoy reading it.
Hmm. Yeah, and everybody doesn't have to like it, but
Yeah.
there probably is a large enough group of people who will like the thing you're into, and if you can find those people and just kind of put your stuff out there, like every time you put something out there, you're basically putting out like a bat signal. Like everybody who likes these kind of bat signals, like come here because this is where you can get some of that.
Yeah.
And I just think we just need to, like you said, get in touch with the things that got us excited. And I feel like some of the best creators that influence us did that exact thing. Find that thing and just manifest it, like make it happen. that's
Mm.
that's what I'm into right now. And I'm having a really fun time. Like I used to be like very much like, man, I want to produce and get stuff done. And I still am that way, but like I've been lately, I've been just like taking comics that I love and just copying them, like, and just drawing things from them and just enjoying the time of like drawing. And then I'll kind of create a character or work on creating a character, and then I'll go back to just drawing stuff from comics, and then I just keep going back and forth, and I'm just having a blast, like going through these old comics, enjoying that process, and realizing like I know kind of my goal is like this kind of book that I'm interested in making, and I don't know what that's gonna evolve into yet, but I'm just in that place of just enjoying doing what I did when I first started being like, I want to make comics. Like I just sat in my room and drew and just drew a bunch of stuff and copied things and and that's where that was born. And so I'm doing that again. And it's just like again, when I see you doing this Wildcat, it just gets me excited because I feel like that's where I'm at. Like that's what I want to be doing too. And I see you on your YouTube too, the midnight, drawing videos. It's like it shows that like that place when you're just like in your room and you got your drawing pad and you're sketching some things, you're looking at some things, you're listening to some music, you got whatever podcast, and it's just that's the place I want to be in. And that's the place I feel like that's like fertile soil to grow something. I don't know what that something is yet, but I'm taking my time and enjoying it. And I feel like something will come out of it and it's worthwhile, whatever it is.
I'm glad that you brought that up. It makes me think of this guy on Facebook. I wished I could remember his name. I just now discovered him, and he's a really good artist. He's pretty good with the colors and the layouts and the whole thing. And I don't know if he really does sequentials, but he's like, he just does splash pages and that type of thing. But he's a good artist, really good artist. And what brought me to him was like somebody had shared a video of his that he had uploaded to TikTok or something like that. I don't know. And it's just him talking, and a lot of it is his journey to where he's at in making comics now, or his art career or whatever. The mistakes that he made, and he shares advice on basically just don't do what he did, and this is what he recommends doing now. But anyway, the reason I bring this guy up is here lately, he was talking about him chasing fame, him chasing money with his art career, and constantly just being let down of the direction of how things are going and that sort of thing. And he was talking about that you need just to let that go, because that's never going to do you any good. That basically you need to just embrace the fun of creating,
Mm,
because over time, those things may come to you, but if you're just chasing the fame, and you're chasing the money, and then chasing the accolades and the admiration, or whatever from your art,
mm-hmm,
then what ends up happening is you end up actually making less art,
mm,
because you're too busy thinking about it being lost in your head. I mean, he didn't say all that. That's me adding to
right.
it. But like, his big message is, you just need to create art and enjoy the process of making art.
Mm,
And the reason I bring it up, in relation to what you said, that's something that I'm going to try to start doing more of myself. I want, I, as somebody that's in their 40s now, desperately wanting a career in comics,
mm-hmm,
and in looking at others and like, why does this person get a career? Why does this person get a career? Why not me?
yeah.
And it's like, you just got to let go of that. I'm not saying not pursue
Mm-hmm,
being a comic book artist and all these other things. But what I'm saying is, when you look at people like Dale Keon, how did he get so great?
mm-hmm,
Well, he must really love drawing, because you can see it in his art.
yeah.
And when you look at Neil Adams and all these other fantastic people, how do they get great? They must really love drawing to the point to where it didn't matter if they were going to be famous or get paid for it or whatever. It's just
Mhm.
something that they enjoyed doing. And if you enjoy doing it and you do it a lot, and you eventually get good, and then maybe at some point, maybe not,
Yeah.
people will take notice, and then they'll buy your stuff. I just hope that I'm good enough now, and all my amazing friends holding me up and holding this book up, that people come back to WildCat Anthology, because we got some of the best up and
Mhm.
coming talent in indie comics, and some legends too as well on
Mhm.
this book. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
See how I
Yeah.
turned that all the way around? You like that?
Yeah. Yeah. You did a good job there.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, I totally agree. And like, I had a good friend of mine I was talking to recently, and he said, you know, that's the thing is like a lot of us want to kind of chase certain things. We want to chase a career, we want to chase whatever it is. And it's like, don't do that. Like anytime you chase something, it always ends up being out of your reach. But one thing you can chase that makes a lot of sense to chase is just chase the dream. Chase the dream the vision you have. Like that's the only person who can bring that vision across is you. Like so chase that, like work on that, enjoy that, take that time, and it's almost not even a chasing thing. It's more of like, to me, I feel like getting lost in the process is producing is creating. I keep coming back to this like garden anthology or whatever. It's like or anthology garden like analogy. And it's like just kind of that kind of getting lost in like just creating things and building within this realm of what you were inspired by. I feel like that's like rototilling the land, and that's putting the fertilizer in, and that's watering it and putting the seeds down. And I just feel like that is going to create grow something. I don't know what that something is, but I know it has to do with comics, and it's comics, and it's I have a general idea, but if I'm sitting there like, okay, I got to do this and this thing and get it done, and then this and that, like to me, if you're chasing like a career, which is something been doing a lot to, I've done a lot in the past and stuff. It's like you can kind of see that, like when people are like, say they're making a comic because they basically want it to be, a movie pitch. Like you can see that there's not this passion of like, I've just created something awesome and I hope people find it. There's this passion of I really want to get some money from this movie deal type of thing. Like, and it's not that's not inspiring. That's not exciting. What's exciting is I just made the coolest thing in the world. I don't know if anybody else is going to like it, but man, I'm digging it. Like this is so fun what I'm doing right now. And you see that in works, certain people's works, like a lot of times. So like imitate that, like create that vision that you have, like whatever it is, even if it's a little weird, like the weirdest things sometimes come to fruition and become big, just naturally,
Yeah.
organically.
Chase the dream.
And chase the dream.
Chase the dream.
So, man, you guys have been awesome in the chat. I really appreciate all the things you guys have been saying. Um, anytime you fertilize something, it grows. There you go. Fertilize things.
That's true.
Yeah, yeah, it's true. Let's see. Peter says, "My method is focus on the skills. I get lost in the skills." I mean, that's the thing is like I've heard people say that they don't like drawing and they're artists, and I'm like, well, I feel like at some point you must have liked drawing. I don't know, but like to me, like I actually do like drawing. Like I sit there when I'm just doodling, even if it's nothing, like I just enjoy that time and so focus on that. I agree. So yeah, so everybody, man, like please go and check out the Wildcat Anthology. He's got 21 days left to get to his goal. And I think it's a definitely like a reachable goal, and it's something worth getting in on the ground floor with. CB's doing some cool things, and I feel like I want to see this happen because I also want to see other Wildcat things happen. I want to see that first issue happen, or whatever it is that, you hey, maybe you decide to just keep doing anthologies for a while. Who knows? Like, whatever it is, like, I want to see what this vision is that CB's been putting forward. I think it's going to be pretty awesome. So please, yeah, go support. Like I said, the link is in the description. Is there anything else you want to say, as we kind of finish up here, to the audience?
Oh, I'll try my best. It's like when I wished I'd planned these things out better. I'll try. I'll try in the
Putting
future.
you on the spot. You don't have to be super profound.
Well, to recap for anyone that's just now tuning in or has no idea what I've been talking about, because I kind of go different directions. I'm the creator of WildCat, and me and my awesome friends have put together this anthology comic that's about this character, and he's been captured by the evil Dr. Terror, and he's being tortured for the whereabouts of this mysterious thing called the Azkani Shigorn. Who knows what it is? Dr. Terror seems to have an idea what it is, and he thinks that Wildcat somewhere in his brain knows where it's at, even though Wildcat can't remember himself, or so he claims, at least we think. And he's not even interested in asking him questions. He's just going to get inside of his skull and try to find out that way.
Mhm.
And that's what the anthology is about in a sense. And then every time he blacks out, we get one of the 6 creative teams story that will pop up. One story involves chainsaw ninjas. Another one is cybernetic polar bears. Another one is a witch that brings cards to life. Another one is kind of like an X-Files type of story. Another one is like I think Wildcat's like falling out of the sky like a meteorite and gets into a scuffle there. Another one, I think, I'm not sure. It's not professional of me to say that basically Wildcat is at a carnival, and I think there's werewolves involved. So many different stories. I've got the first appearance of some of my characters like Wildcat, Dr. Terror, and Fish Boy is going to be in this. I'm kind of curious what people will think of Fish Boy. Every person on the creative team has contributed at least 8 pages of story. I've done around 32 to kind of like tie everybody's stories together, as well as do my own thing that I put in there too. And this is, like, I think it's roughly about 10 people that put this book together, and this book is like 75% done. All 32 of my pages are penciled and inked. I'm halfway through lettering them right now. The fantastic RJ Johnston did gray tones on 20 of those pages, and they look awesome. We've got over half the creators are pretty much finished with their stuff. And how's the wife calling me? She's wondering where I'm at on the internet. All right. Hello? Well, let me call you right back. All right. I love you. Bye. I had to answer that or I get whooped. So,
Yeah.
so you got 80 pages of this, and you got all these indie creators, and like the way that I pitched the book is like, you're getting these first appearances, you're getting an 80-page book, and you're getting these up and coming creators, which I include myself in that. Maybe I'm not up and coming or whatever, but I'm an indie, whatever, trying to be indie, and here we all are, and who's to say which number of us could be the next Jack Kirby or Steve Ditko or Jim Lee or Del Keon? Insert your favorite artist here,
Mm-hmm.
And so you're going to get a lot of the early work from us, and so that's another plus.
Mm-hmm.
And you're getting like the first appearance. Wildcat already said that already, but yeah. and this is going to be a primer for Wildcat, kind of get used to the character, because after this, sometime after this, I will be doing the reboot of the first issue of Wildcat, Dead Man Walking, and it's going to be a lot more serious, darker, but also funny and light, and a little bit of everything in between. And I really hope that Chins come out and back this book. And whether you do or not, I appreciate that you at least watched this video and you checked out the campaign. And if you are interested in backing it, you've only got roughly about 20 odd days to do so. So start saving your bottle caps or whatever it is that you need to save. And when your payday comes up, just remember us, and we'd really appreciate it. And we don't take it for granted. And thank you.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Awesome. So, where can people find you, good sir? What if besides the Indiegogo, I have the link to your YouTube in the description, so I know people
Awesome.
can find you there. Is that the main place, or?
Oh, it's one of them. I'm all over the internet.
Mhm.
If you leave a message somewhere on the internet, I'll find you eventually. But the places that I frequent a lot are Twitter and YouTube and Odyssey. I love Odyssey. It's awesome, by the way. If you're not on Odyssey, you need to get an Odyssey account right
Mhm.
now. And not just you, Marsh. I mean, everybody. Everybody needs an Odyssey account.
Uh-huh.
But Odyssey, Twitter, and YouTube is my big three. I mean, I do use Facebook, but I kind of use it more personal. But I'm trying to get more in the headspace that I need to start actually using it more as a marketing tool, to get myself out there. But
Mhm.
I'm on Gab, I'm on Minds, and all over the place. But YouTube, Odyssey, Twitter.
Yes. Awesome. Sounds good. All right. Well, thank you, man, for coming on again. And always happy to have you on talking comics and getting wild here.
Getting
um,
wild.
yes. Again, you guys know where to find me. My links are in the description. But most of all, I just want you to go over to the Indiegogo, check that out. I think it's worthwhile. It's fresh. It's awesome. And other than that, thank you everybody in the chat for hanging out with us and everybody watching on the replay. And we will check you back the next time we got a video going. So have a great night.